webinar series number 3 on SDG 6, water and sanitation. Okay, today is 1st April 2021. So in the next hour, we are hosting two great speakers who are known internationally on the work they do on SDG, or Sustainable Development Goals, specifically related to SDG 6, water and sanitation. So my name is Rahina Ibrahim, your host and moderator for today. I'm actually a professor in architecture and specialize in innovative construction technologies at University Putra, Malaysia. Currently, I'm the focal lead for the implementation working group for the Global Wastewater Initiative Awareness Program at UN Environment Program, UNEP. I would like to recognize the Department of Architecture, Faculty of Design and Architecture for hosting this webinar series. I welcome everyone here who are here today. So let me tell you a little bit about this background. So this webinar series on SDG 6 is actually co-organized by UNEP and ACT Malaysia. Part of the Global Wastewater Initiative Awareness Program with University Putra Malaysia. So the objective are two. First is to increase awareness on the importance of the ocean quality preservation in promoting sustainable livelihood for coastal communities. And secondly, to share culture-based technologies in the area of sanitation to remote settlement. In each series, we arrange key speakers. We partner one member from the from the Global Wastewater Initiative Awareness Program with a speaker from Malaysia. Yeah. So today is the third of 11 webinar series planned for the whole year of 2021 under the SDG 6 title. So the webinar series recognizes the partner and supporters for SDG 6. Among them, University Malaysia Sabah and the Malaysian Industry Government Group for High Technology, MITE. So this webinar series is part of the 50th celebration for the establishment of University Putra Malaysia. So please be informed that the session is recorded for case analysis by the United Nations Environment Program. Also, please be informed that the session is also streamed live at our faculty Facebook. So before we go on, actually, we have somebody who's celebrating his birthday today. So happy birthday, John.
Thank you.
The secret is out, all right. Do you want me to call you birthday boy or birthday guy?
I'm a birthday boy. It keeps me young. I know I'm still looking for my age, so I'm okay.
But you're not going to share your age, right? Great.
I'm one off 40, so we're not not too bad yet.
All right. So
yeah, I'm doing something right.
Yeah. May you be blessed with longer life and good health.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So our first speaker, John Jones, actually is the Chief Executive Officer of SAM Energy Limited, a company working towards the evolution of sustainable, waste-free and circular economy. SAM is a member of the Global Wastewater Initiative Program. Welcome. So he will be speaking about blue economy for ocean conservation. So let me give you a little bit introduction about John. You have some background in architecture and project management.
Yep. So we actually
and he is from this company. Okay.
Yep. So we actually can I if I share the presentation, Rian?
Not yet.
No. Okay. So I'm so excited to share this.
I know you are excited. I know you are excited, but give me my excitement also.
Okay, I'll give you time.
Hold
Okay,
on.
apologies.
One more minute. One more minute. Okay, I know. Okay. As you can see, he's so passionate about sustainability and he focused on working towards the evolution of circular economy. So the end goal where business environment, so where business and habit could flourish simultaneously. So although developing pioneering solution that process waste and water. So that's how we come along together to derive new value. So SAM actually aims to be an environmental partner to a variety of businesses while driving the core value underlining the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So before we listen to the Blue Economy talk, I would like to invite the audience to write in the chat box any question because there will be no interruption for the speakers. Each will have 20 minutes. So we will gather all the questions towards the end. So at the end of the second speaker, then we will go through those questions with the speaker. So the floor is yours, John. So you can now share your slide.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you very much for the birthday wishes. So if I can just share my first screen with you, can you see the presentation there?
Yeah, perfect.
Yep. Are we good?
Perfect.
So my name is John Jones, and we actually have Grant Leslie, who's the COO and co-founder of SEM, with my fine self. So as we rightly said, SEM's main focus is on SDG Alliance and ensuring that we are really looking to efficiently develop co-product to byproduct strategies and create a true circular economy and true sustainable GDP increase or viable and monetized increase to our business partners, but also whilst looking at the best environmental practices that we possibly can. SEM's primary focus is really on high volumetric carbon reduction, and that's looking at some of the kind of the world's naughty boys, if we like, that they're being listed within agriculture, oil and gas, and really looking at technology development at its finest, allowing us to reduce in power requirements, chemical requirements, and looking at the best sustainable technologies that we can do to really disrupt the markets from what we effectively call centralized processes. So we really want to get smaller sub-economic strategies and sub-economic tools that we can use to go to the waste streams as close as possible. So effectively, if we have heavily water-laden trucking, we would look to dewater that as far as possible whilst creating as much maximum value as we possibly can. So obviously the SDG goals are primary, especially along the 2, 3, 8, 9, 12, 13 and 14, especially to us within the blue economy. As we grow towards 10 billion people on this planet, all of our resources, all of our precious resources are going to be stretched to their limits, and we must act now to really define out the real strategies and the real action takers to ensure that we can sustain all of our precious resources. And the ocean and our good fishing practices and fishing cultures that bring us a good food source, a sustainable food source, a good environmental practice towards our economic growth and food security for the planet. As we discussed first initially, our main positive impact within the agriculture, would be the main place of reduction in waste, and we'll go through how we do that shortly in 2 seconds. Local processing and treatment, so really localizing down, decentralizing what we call the white elephant treatment systems from big, large waste energy plants. We want to get away from that. We want to do a true reuse and a true co-product to byproduct strategy to use the co-products that are created from these processes, and making sure that we use every part of the animal or whatever it is that we're processing at the time. Maximizing the carbon efficiencies. Now, again, this can be through actual sustainable process, so the actual process of how we go about the production of our aquaculture, or the actual technologies that drive the co-product to byproduct strategies. The treatment of the water, especially, making sure that we're looking after the water bodies that these fish are grown, whether that be inland for what you would call your compliance discharges to your local watercourses, or closed loop strategies where we're reusing the water as much as possible. It's effectively important, especially important within high water stress areas where there aren't huge amounts of water. So it's very important that we look after that and try and reuse this as much as possible. And then aiming towards a 100% co-product rehabilitation and byproduct creation. And this really is the primary behind how we make this affordable technology for everybody. The capex on some of the equipment is always quite large when we're putting these strategies together to allow us to actually implement these technologies. If cost is an issue, we have looked towards areas that we can increase the yield value of these byproducts to sell back into the market to allow an additional monetized set for this. Oh no. Here we go. So our main solutions, you'll see, unfortunately, our base in Shetland, a little bit rusty on the tanks there. They're being remediated right now, where we're increasing the tank farm on Shetland, which has a huge salmon production. For those that know Scotland and the west coast of Scotland very well, fishing and aquaculture is very important to our economy. So we do put some of the best world-leading practices in sustainable fishing development and aquaculture development. So our main real look towards where SEM's primary focus was on what we call Cat 2, Category 2 fish development, and this is around biosecurity of fish mortality. So within Scotland and globally, there are large mortality issues that happen on a number of natural elements, and this could be algae blooms that really make its way through into the water bodies and unfortunately deoxygenate the water and end up killing mass volumetrics of fish. And then unfortunately under that ruling, it is no longer fit for human consumption because it's graded as a category 2, which is a biological disease controlled fish. So how do you monetize that from the loss positions of where the farmer's at? So we've looked to really engage into ensuring that we can even take the mortality side and turn that into an effective co-product to byproduct strategy right the way through the whole process. And again, even looking at where we have an abundance of water, we still look to make sure that the water bodies where we have a clean discharge limit, where we remove the solids, we remove the NPK, so your nitrogen values within those water courses, and increase the efficiency so that we're reducing the amount of CO2 production in typical methods. So as you'll see some big numbers there, where within the comparison methodology of what we do within our facility, which is create biodiesel from a base oil that we pull from the salmon. And in our practice right now, compared to hydrocarbon production, that's around about 90% in carbon reduction for its own CO2 program. So again, when we're looking at the actual sustainable elements of in ocean production or in the lakes or lochs, that we call them in Scotland, that we produce the fish, we want to make sure that the water bodies themselves are healthy. So this could be heavily under lice control. So we have what we call a biological dehydrated powder, which is around about 16 different forms of natural bacteria. Now, these are completely 100% natural. They are created by nature. We've just put them into a biological culture so that we can culture them and grow them in vast quantities. We dehydrate them so that they are only activated as soon as they hit the water. And what that allows us to do is look at creating a reduction on the sludge mats from the slight amount of overfeed. Now, again, the sustainable practices that the fishing industry use are very, very sophisticated in where we are. The amount of feed is controlled to a very, very strategic level, depending on the amount of fish that are actually allowed within the pens and the habitats themselves. So we make sure that the science behind everything that's being grown is to the best animal welfare capabilities that we can possibly give them, and also to the environmental capabilities as well. So obviously we have some issues with the algae productions in the watercourses at the moment. And this is really where the bioaction comes into play, where it reoxygenates the water as an oxygenating agent within there, that increases the actual water quality by increasing the oxygen within the water. And therefore that increases the actual health of the fish because it takes down the organics within there. So it stops the allowance of any breeding grounds for the lice, which again is another huge global problem to fish farming. Lice is just a nightmare for the industry, and mortality again. So the increased longevity and body weight of the fish as well is increased by the bacterial implications or implementation. Sorry, and the overall reductions of BOD, such as your biological oxygen demand, your COD, which is your chemical oxygen demand, and TSS, which is your total suspended solids, which is the actual organics that come from the fish waste that lay on what you would call the sludge mats at the bottom. If we reduce all of those with the use of the biologicals, that increases the efficiency and the health of the water, and therefore the health of the fish. And it can actually stop mammals and things like that from entering into the pens and causing some further issues. As we're talking about algae, one of the biggest issues that we find is algae blooms. Even within Scotland, we get hit with them all the time. And this is within, unfortunately, the climate change of the ocean as we see it today. We see a lot more algae blooms spreading around the world. So we have programs in Florida, we have programs in California, even looking at rare turtle breeding grounds, where we're protecting the breeding grounds there from red tide. And how we do that is that we have a detection and prevention methodology strategy. So we actually use ultrasonics on the bottom of solar powered mooring buoys. And as you'll see within the top slide there, what that allows it to do is it actually breaks the cell structures of the algae and allows the algae to drop down into the bottom of what we would call the sludge mats, the bottom of the ocean bed floor. That allows sunlight to come through and help reoxygenate the water. But then you have the problem, unfortunately, of all these organics that live on the bottom of the seabed, which left untreated really will increase the likelihood of an explosion of another algae bloom quite shortly after. And they can be quite aggressive. They move without warning. So within the mooring buoys, what we have is the ultrasonics prevention, but we also have telemetry on there to allow us to identify how the tidal shift works, how the algae starts to encroach onto the possible farms. And it's used as also an early warning system. So if we see a drop in oxygen, if we see a pH value change, if we see anything that we may dictate that might be an algae bloom, it allows us to tell the fish farmers with forward warning that they can actually go and then remove the fish from the pen, and then they can save that production line, and then therefore a loss of potential revenue. Even though we have a solution for the Cat2, they obviously want to supply the food to the market, so we want to keep these fish alive as possible. And again, this is where people get confused with SEM strategy, is that we have a huge strategy for Cat2. We actually make money on the unfortunate death of the fish, but we do have a huge strategy about trying to keep these fish alive, healthy, because it really is the industry we want to help. We don't want to line our own pockets with the unfortunateness of nature from this side of things. And then as we're discussing with the organics on the bottom of the sludge mat, this is where bioaction comes again. We eat all of the organics naturally, 100% naturally, where we just excrete the minerals and excrete CO2 to an extent, and then the bacteria die off naturally once there isn't a food source there. So that allows the root structure of the algae to die and prevent algae blooms from coming back. And as you can see, just as within an infographic there, with our treatment, without our treatment, is quite highly driven to that side. Some of our red tide and green tide detection, and actually some of the main water detection algorithms and telemetry that we have, is our Proteus meter, and we're a partner with another company with the development and the deployment of this. The guys that developed this have done an incredible job, where effectively it's the world's first BOD monitor, live BOD monitor. So when you have telemetry and you have different lab analysis that you need to run on water sampling, when you take a sample from the affected area and you get it, by the time you get it to the lab, the BOD and COD and some of the main components that make up these parts can actually highly change quite quickly. So what we allow ourselves to do is to make sure that we have the live telemetry on site, so we have the most effective and most up-to-date information that's as accurate as possible. And when it comes to BOD as well, this is especially important because it's actually quite an expensive culture process that you need to go through in the lab. It takes around 5 days. So if we can take that monitoring point of BOD instantaneously, and we use a calculation and variation on that to do that, then if you look at the global wastewater problem, and this is why it's amazing to be part of the wastewater initiative, is that we can actually map all of the problem areas within the water bodies around the world very tightly, very cost effectively, and we can actually make measured approaches to how we're going to remediate these water courses. So where there may be academic studies on wider water bodies, we can actually take that live data, take the telemetry lines, and work out that effective strategy to make sure that we are sustainably and environmentally being conscious to how we remediate these water bodies and producing plans around the affected areas, whether it's industry, it could be nature. We just don't know until we start to discover the real problematic areas around this. And it gives us a good understanding of red tide as well. Red tide's still relatively unknown. There's a lot of studies that are being done right now about effective methodologies of the reduction of these problem areas. So that's it for me. I just want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen to us today, and we'll look forward to hearing the rest of the speakers from today.
Okay.
Michelle.
Thank you, John. That really on time.
It's a uncommon thing for me.
Uncommon. Okay. We have about 2 minutes before I call upon the second speaker, or shall we move on to the second speaker? Yeah. Do you have question, or we can wait until the end when after most speakers are completed? Because technically,
Yeah, I can take some
Fatima,
questions.
you can take some question. We have 2 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Okay. Is
I,
there
I,
anyone
have a, I have a question to
your
Grant.
name?
My name is Mustafa Kamal from
The speaker is
Malaysia.
John.
John or Grant?
John is the speaker.
I'm John, but Grant's here as well. We can take both questions.
Sorry.
We're
Sorry. Mix up. You got it. You look almost the same anyway.
Very similar.
Yeah, I'm getting the video off.
We'll be able
I'm
to
taking
get
the video off. I'm coming off.
Okay, 1 minute
Okay.
question.
Okay, sorry. John, you're talking about the BOD sensor, the BOD probe. Is it in the market already? This is very, very interesting, actually.
Yeah, it's been in the market for quite some time. We actually this is the first applications that we're using it in ocean sensors. Predominantly, it's used for end of pipe in industry. So water plants, wastewater plants, industrial treatment plants, even distilleries in Scotland, the food and drink market. And the main thing that we're getting from our legislators is about compliance. So they have SEPA, for instance, which is our environmental protection agency. They love this because effectively you can't hide from it. You know, it gives you the true reflection of what that discharge is. So and it's a live feedback. You can look at the data on your phone. The data can be fed to a central analytical base to make studies from this. So yeah, it's been in the market for a long time. It's just now really that compliance and around CT, your discharge compliances and the unfortunate events from COVID, but it's actually done us a huge amount of favors by flipping the SDG compliance on its head. So the call for this system is absolutely astronomical. We've actually, there's the guys, RS Hydro, who are doing the installations and the main tech piece behind this, have actually just about to do one in the Ganges. They're doing a huge lay along that. So that's actually given us the call to now go and look at some of the largest riverbed and rivers in the world, about how we go and monitor the inflow of these huge water bodies, and then how we start to build the programs around the remediation factors to make sure that we can make those water bodies a lot healthier for the townships along them.
Okay, great. I think there's
one more question, please.
No. Can you put it in the chat? Then we can because
Okay.
the time is for Fatima now. Yes. Okay. Let's go to the second speaker. Thank you, John, for your presentation.
You're welcome.
So we move to the second speaker now. Second speaker is in food, Datin Paduka Dr. Fatima Muhammad Arshad, who is the head of Agriculture and Food Security Cluster, Academy of Professors Malaysia. She will speak about topic on sharing and caring through cooperative for coastal communities. So allow me to introduce Datin Paduka Dr. Fatima. She has over 30 years of experience in agricultural marketing and policy studies, particularly on food commodity such as paddy and rice. So her interests include price and market efficiencies, supply chain analysis, agriculture institutions, and policy impact and simulation. She has contributed regularly inputs and ideas to the national agricultural policies by being appointed to critical national committees. She also degree in Master Science and Doctorate in Agriculture Marketing from University Newcastle upon Tyne, UK. So I would like to remind again to the audience to write in the chat box if you have any question for both speakers. So we will gather all the questions at the end. So Fatima, I like to remind you that you will have a 1 minute timer at the end. I will give you a notice in case you overshoot, but hopefully not. So the floor is yours. Go ahead. Cannot hear. Sorry, you need to unmute. You need to unmute. Sorry. You need to unmute. Hello?
Okay.
Okay. I need you to repeat again. So we miss all the 3 slides.
All right. Okay. Sorry.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Hello. Could you hear me?
Okay, now you're okay. Good to go.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Rahina and friends, for inviting me for this webinar. And happy birthday, Ladi from Scotland.
It's John.
Okay. Happy birthday, John.
John, wrong name again.
Bloody, I love it. That's brilliant.
That sounds good, isn't it? All right. The title of my presentation is there's a bit of adjustment there. Sharing and caring through cooperatives, one, and the other one is co-management of fisheries resources for coastal communities. Right. So these are my lines of discussion. I would like to look at this problem from a system view perspective, on the bigger side of it, about coastal community, and I would consider your ideal, not ideal, highly helpful and very innovative wastewater system, or your ISTP innovation waste subsystem as one of the subsystem, and the biggest system is the coastal fishing community system. Yeah. So I'm proposing here cooperative and co-management, and also will provide you some policy implications. Why these two? Because I have done a number of research in these areas. Right. So you guys have introduced this ISTP, and as John mentioned, I would say the implication or the impact or far-reaching impact. Yeah. So I have listed here, as mentioned by John, the health of the people, and that means the future young generation, so that they are healthy, they can go to school, and the resources in the sea. besides fish and other resources too, and it improves their livelihood and of course environment and of course the sustainable fisheries as well as whatever in the ocean. So I look at this sewage subsystem in a what we call a system view. So you have this red box, your technology that will currently with so much waste, it causes the water to be toxic, and therefore it does affect the food, and it affects the the process inside in the water, and the chemical that it produces, and the effect on algae and bacteria that use up the dissolved oxygen, and therefore the quality of the marine life. Yeah. So this process is what we call a reinforcing process. The more waste we put in the water, the more toxic and the more it affected the marine life, right? So the issues here is I propose here, or I kind of look at the implication in terms of its sustainability. I think it's very good that John provide from the technological business sense of it. So the sustainability of this technology in terms of finance, the maintenance and upgrading. I think Rahina and friends have to think about it. And for their livelihood, for their environmental as well as resource management, so this technology is one of the solutions for their overall livelihood, yeah, and as well as their ecosystem. So this is what I propose based on our experience with our proposal with regards to co-management of fisheries in Marido. We have come up with a proposal on co-management based on the co-management system implemented in Chompan, Thailand, in Philippines, as well as Sihanoukville in Cambodia, right? So all the red lines are the supports here. So the earlier one is what we call a vicious circle. We can turn it around to become virtuous circle where everything is positive. Yeah. So better or improved sewage system through your technology, therefore cleaner ocean environment, therefore better sustainable catch, improvement in health, therefore with sustainable catch, improve their livelihood and therefore their saving. And with that saving through cooperative, they can improve the system or they can innovate or they can maintain, right? But for the resource management, it would be nice. Besides cooperative, they also have what we call the fisheries co-management. So these are the support needed to help them sustain the system, yeah, the environmental as well as fisheries system in the ocean or in their living area. But of course, this requires lots of institutional supports from the government, NGO, agencies, states, provincial, district, villages, and the fishermen themselves, right? So this support, institutional support together with your technology, hopefully can create a what we call virtuous circle that will help their livelihood and the so-called sustainable fisheries management, right? So based on that, this is our hypothesis. It will create a virtuous circle of sustainable livelihood through collective action, meaning where fishermen cooperative as well as their co-management of fishery resources. So the argument is, the alliance of argument is this: better technology, your ISTP, better ocean, better harvest, higher income. Therefore, they are able to maintain the ISTP. However, fishery community need organizational as well as institutional support. This is because cooperative, individual fishers by themselves on their own has low countervailing power compared to the middleman or the buyer. Therefore, fishery cooperatives is a vehicle for them to improve their livelihood so that they can maintain the technology, the ISTP, and make further advancement in their life. Co-management fisheries resources, where the locals themselves take charge of their resource to ensure sustainability. All right, so why cooperatives? Cooperatives, based on our study here, and of course there are many more studies all over the world, it helps to create social relations that enable individuals, yeah, to account or to achieve their goals that they may not able to achieve by themselves, right? So fishers may benefit in terms of economies of scale by lowering their cost of input, say for example buying boat, engine and petrol. Fishers can get access to supply, yeah, and they are otherwise beyond their reach. And as I mentioned to you, Rahina, the minimum number of membership for cooperative in Malaysia has been reduced from 50 to 20. So I think 20 is quite a reasonable number for farmers, for fishers to group together as a cooperative. Of course, it improves fish marketing. This is based on our study here. Yeah, they are organized, better service quality, and empowers the members economically as well as socially by involving them in decision-making process that create additional employment, marketing, or distribution of input and so on, to become more resilient to economic as well as environmental shocks. And of course, these are the famous democratic management system in the cooperative, right? So these are the 7 principles of cooperative. I think most of you are aware of it. Number 1 is voluntary and open membership, democratic member control, member economic participation, autonomy and independence, education, training and information, cooperation among cooperatives, and of course, concerns for the community. So these are the harmonious value of cooperatives, which I think is very suitable for this kind of community, because this community work as a family, you know, so they are very much close to each other. So I would expect cooperatives will come handy to them. They will embrace a cooperative concept easily. But that is yet to be tested, right? Okay, why co-management of fisheries resources? I'm sure all of you are very familiar with Eleanor Ostrom. According to Eleanor, she is against single governmental units at global level to solve the collective action problem of coordinating work against environmental destruction, because it is complex, it is multidimensional, and diversity of actors involved. So she proposed a polycentric approach, meaning empowering the stakeholders to decide for themselves, and those who are very close to the scene of events and actors involved in the activities themselves. This is from Eleanor Ostrom. Co-management means institutional arrangement between government and agencies and various groups to effectively manage the defined resources, in this case in fisheries, and it lies between polar approaches of centralized control and privatization, and it covers a broad spectrum of management strategies. There are many strategies involved, from informing, consultation, cooperation, community control, and of course inter-area coordination. So that is co-management of fisheries. I like this quote by Eleanor. As long as single center has a monopoly on the use of coercion, one has a state rather than a self-governed society. I think Eleanor believes in empowering the local people to take care of their livelihood by managing their resources. As mentioned earlier, it is about institutional arrangement between government and user groups to manage defined resources. And it's the same thing earlier, right? It covers a broad spectrum of management strategies, yeah, as mentioned earlier, right? So maybe some of you are new, but we have carried out a study to propose co-management for fisheries resources in Marudu. We have come up with a kind of a complete proposal. It was tabled in the Parliament, but sadly, the Attorney General refused it because he doesn't believe in empowering the locals, giving the power to the locals to take charge of their resources in their area. So that was the story for Malaysia. But Thailand has gone ahead with this and is quite successful, where they also integrated with activities to the locals, particularly to the female or to their wives and ladies. So they integrate fisheries management as well as agribusiness activities as well as cooperative. So it's quite impressive. The same thing in Philippines as well as in Sihanoukville in Cambodia. So what co-management is about is a formal negotiated agreement between the partners, right? So you have a management plan that specifies the objective, and the partners has to agree the rights and responsibility of the participant, and the content of the agreements may cover things like territory, resources, boundaries, functions, recognized stakeholders, functions, right, responsibilities of each stakeholder, an agreed set of management priorities and management plan, procedures dealing with conflicts, negotiating collective decision of all these functions, of course, procedures and rules for monitoring, evaluating, reviewing the agreement and management plan. This is from this article and our book. I think we have come up with a book on co-management of fisheries for Marudu. Right. This is how it should be done. It is an involvement of various agencies from the top to the bottom, and it's not a linear kind of relationship, but a feedback relationship from top to bottom, bottom up, and so on, so that everyone sit down together and prepare a plan for the fishermen in the area. So we have the fishers here, therefore we need government to institute it. That means government here refers to national level, regional level, provincial, state, municipal, district, and villages. I think based on experience in Chumpan, Thailand, it took them about 4 to 5 years to make it happen. But in the case of Malaysia, we have proposed, we have prepared the paper, but it was turned down at the parliament level. So that's it. The story ended there. So maybe you guys can come up again with a proposal to help the fishermen so that they can benefit from this technology. Because by itself, this technology is not enough to sustain their livelihood. Most of these fishermen are poor people. As you can see, you have seen how their life is, right? Toilet alone is not enough. They need income, they need good food, they need schooling for their children. Some of them don't have identity card for their children. There are lots of problems there. So they are small fishermen, but their problem is big and deep. Therefore, it requires the whole nation, everyone, to help them. As I'm quite impressed what China did for the poor people in their country, where everyone is involved, from the top official until the extension agent that goes down to the household level and asking them what are their problems and solutions and so on. So that's what it takes if you want to bring them out of the abject poverty. So we have here the government, and of course, when you want to implement co-management, you also have to have a kind of supports and agreement from the boat owners themselves, the fish traders, that includes money lenders, and of course fishermen that are involved in recreational fishes, and of course those business people, which are involved in tourism or port, the industry, the hotel, the scuba diving, and so on. And here we are, the academician, as well as external agencies like yours, right? So what are the policy implications? This is how I conclude the policy implications. As in the case of Malaysia, we did not have the political will. Maybe the politician or the attorney general, he's a lawyer, so he could not appreciate what it takes to sustain resources in the sea, right? So probably it's not well exposed to the issues, to the natural resource issues. So that's why our proposal was turned down. So it requires strong political will and lots of advocacy and persuasion needed here. And also we need the international and local networks collaboration, right? Because when you speak, the international agencies speak, it makes an impression, or it has some impact to the government compared to us local academicians or local researchers. And I would propose that this is what China did when they tried to kind of, they were able to uplifted 700 million poor people, abject poverty poor people, out of the poverty trap. And the method that they use is this. The policy comes from the top man, and it is translated down, is cascaded down through various levels. But in the end, it's the role of the extension agent to visit all the household, understand the problem, and get their views, what are their solution or their expectation. So in the end, China came up with 5 suggestions, that is industry, education, ecological compensation, relocation as well as social safety support. Right, so it's quite comprehensive there. And of course, I must say, governance is a big issue in Malaysia, right? So because of that, because of the governance issue, the government prefers big projects rather than little projects that that will enhance smallholders or fishermen's life, because it doesn't bring much benefit to them. So this is also a big issue. And of course, as proven in Chompan, in Sihanoukville, and I think in San Miguel, Philippines, it requires proper planning, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation, and the need for a pilot project and close monitoring. And it takes years until it becomes successful, and it needs a dedicated leadership, a committed leadership to make it happen. And training and educating the stakeholders, including the politician, including the attorney general, including the public at large. So these are the challenges, or the what it means for Malaysia to implement both cooperatives and co-management of fisheries. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for such an insightful talk on self-empowering coastal communities. I love the talk very much, because I have always been wondering, how can we work at that scale? So even if it's not big, can we work it out at a smaller scale? So that would be my first question to you, Fatima, if you can expand a little bit before I go to John and see the chat number.
Yes, because don't underrate the fishermen, because fishermen knows their area well. They know what kind of fishes are in the sea. They understand the season. They can tell the behavior of the fish resource by looking at the sun, at the moon, and so on. And those what do you call it, knowledge or tacit knowledge are not written in the book. They know better. Yeah, just like the natives, right? They can understand, I heard the story that this one researcher went to the forest, and the native the guy told that researcher, please hang on, because he think that a snake will be coming, will be passing by, and he was correct. He was able to detect the moment of the smell and the sound of the snake, but we don't. So the same thing with fishermen, because the knowledge has been passed down to many generations. And I think Elinor is correct that he said that the best manager for local resources are the local people themselves. You're not asking them to manage the resources for the whole country, but for the area within reach where they do their fishing and so on. I think it's not much, actually. Right.
I think it'll be a good model to, you can test out at our demonstration project at that level. You don't need the whole country for testing that, right?
We
So
have
I think
tested
John also agrees on that.
Rahina, we have tested in Kampung Teriang Langkawi.
Oh, you have? You didn't mention that one.
Yeah. Just
Okay.
we have tested for a while, and then while waiting for the decision from the parliament, we thought the parliament will kind of support that, but they turned it down. So the project is in shelf. So maybe this technology can help strengthen the case for.
Absolutely. I mean, Fatima, we've definitely seen even in Scotland that with the policy side of things, we engaged the environmental agencies on a government level, but we avoided the government like the plague. That there was no support whatsoever to SEM for any of our drivers. So what we found was that we pushed policy internally within industry. So exactly to your point about the cooperatives, is this is what we talk about when we do sub-economic strategies, is that decentralization way away from big industry and the smaller farms and the smaller farmers, the smaller fish farmers, the artisan farmers, if you like. Having that cooperative strategy together to allow them to do B2B, B2C, and actually manage their own cash and their own implementation of that side. And then also having on the technology driver, within the biodiesel creation, for instance, if you have that cooperative, if one of the big issues is fuel distribution, fuel creation to the smaller townships, it's about that cash management strategy on how they implement big capex items to help that cooperative piece there. Now we do that across agriculture, we do it across the aquaculture side, and it works, and it has to be that strategy now that really we decentralize a lot of this stuff. And unfortunately, it does mean not involving the governments. And I think governments will always catch up to industry, as soon as they see that we're doing a great thing and, oh, we don't have to spend any money because somebody's done it for us and it works great. Let's build a policy behind that. I think, there's a lot of great funds out there right now. The impact investment side of things with ESG impact investments that really people aren't. There's a lot of funds that really aren't worried about large capital gains. We're more interested in bringing carbon reduction with their investment pieces and good to the world and sustainable futures. And really, these are the type of funds that we want to engage to bring into these type of projects to allow these to be accelerated so that we don't have to go out and look for government funding. We don't have to go to government for policy drives. You can do an independent industry challenge. But I completely agree with your statements and your presentation. Brilliant, very good.
Excellent answer, John.
That's good. Yeah. Okay, let me see what we have here on the chat. Ofa mentioned something about opportunities to probe. Partner countries under the GW2I membership looking into what we call combining or working together across, especially the one that you call what we call it, real-time water quality measurement. You did mention about that. Do you want to say something about that across the world?
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that we're definitely looking towards. We're actually in the midst of with Ars Hydro. They're looking at a cheaper development of the same monitors. So we're looking at global deployment for these to implement water strategies to actual countries. So that we can start to put together wastewater initiative programs back to industry. So rather than putting strain on government funds and government requirement to implement these strategies, we'll actually allow it to be done by industry. So we'll go back to industry and say, listen, really your compliance is not there. You need to do something within it. So you need to put an infrastructure in place to make sure that your wastewater compliance out into the public watercourse or whatever watercourse is that they're discharging into, or the water that they're pulling in. If it's a highly water-stricken area, we need to look at water reuse. So the monitor allows us to really do that and really kind of tie all that data together to get a true picture of what we need to do in an entire country basis, not just a localized industry basis.
Well, would you say we can come up with a one proposal that we can work across all the multiple members of the GW2?
Absolutely.
Group? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, that's good. I have comments. It's not answer, but really appreciate you mentioned about the tacit knowledge of the locals, Fatima.
Yes.
Definitely. Yes, I can vouch for that. I think someone also here can vouch for that.
Not only that, we met 70-year-old fishermen, 70 plus. All of them could dive into the sea, compared to us.
Oh yes, definitely.
Yes,
we saw that. We saw that.
Yeah, and they are very lean, unlike us. They are very lean.
I need to learn some of the fitness tips. I need to spend some time out there.
They are fit and they are healthy.
Yeah, fit and healthy. Yeah, of course they are dark skin because exposure to the sun.
Yeah. All right. Okay, one question from this Norhas Rizam. Maybe this one can go for Fatima or maybe for John. Maybe I'll give it to Fatima. Do you see any future of use SDI for precision fisheries to create new business model, taking over what we have right now? Because some of your ideas are maybe too new to the conventional ideas. Yeah, Fatima, I call it too new.
What technology is this? Precision fishing, of course.
Precision fishing, yes.
Of course, we need technology. Yeah,
Okay.
because you can hear from John's presentation is all about science, you know, understanding the water, the fish, the oxygen, the process inside the sea, not mentioning when's the best time to harvest, you know, when's the best time to go to the sea. Of course, they have their own guides, you know, but imagine with their knowledge that they have for many years, I'm sure you can find some algorithm. I'm sure you can translate that into database and come up with whatever apps, you know.
Yep, absolutely.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
you're completely right, because when we looked at the locals, even on the Malaysia side, we're now, only because of social media and the allowance of the access to data, do we see these big problems like the algae blooms. So we've got huge satellite imagery to track these things now. But when we
yeah.
talked to the fishermen before, the locals, they were like, "Oh well, we've seen these for decades. I mean, there's stories about this for years.
Yeah,
There's nothing new. That
yeah.
nature has always created these things. It's
Yeah.
just because we've got such an expansive requirement for the ocean now and trying to expand these things that we're constantly trying to control the environment to allow us to further develop these areas. But it's amazing what the locals, the
Yeah.
resource knowledge that they have. It's got to be used. I mean, it really has to be captured in some way, shape.
I think John, based on our observations, they love their environment. Like they understand the fish.
Absolutely.
They have this habit. I don't know. I mean, when you eat fish, when you eat with fishermen, so if you're eating fish, you cannot turn it over. You cannot turn over the fish because they believe that will affect their boat. So it's something like that. So they really, so they really respect the sea. Remember, we have they carry out this. It used to be kind of a ritual. They call it puja laut. Puja is a Hindu word.
Puja, yeah.
Yeah, that means to thank God for the sea for them.
Yeah.
So it means they
Yeah.
appreciate the sea.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just adding
No,
something.
absolutely.
Okay. I have to put a stop to our exciting conversation. There was one last one. You asked what are the challenges, especially to the owners on the marine farming, but I think you covered the algae and the dying mortality. Yeah. So, is there anything to add or to that?
No, it's been a great conversation today, and it's been wonderful hearing from Fatima. And I think there's lots to be done. There's lots of things out there that are going in the right direction for the sustainability side and moving towards the SDGs on our
Okay.
Great
So,
stuff.
somebody asked for the cleanup of the sludge. I think that was one of the one that you put in the fish pond. So maybe you can share the brochure about that.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah, no worries at all. Yep,
Okay.
absolutely. Yep,
So
yep.
because thank you. So have a share. Please share that. I think I have to end. We really have 1 hour only, but we like to keep it short and sharp so that people don't get bored. So now I have to say some closing words here. It's been very nice to have both of you and very sharp and short, but very elaborative for informative to everyone. Okay, we have now come to the end of the third webinar series on SDG 6 Water and Sanitation, co-organized by UNEP and ACT Malaysia with University Putra Malaysia. I hope everyone has enjoyed and gathered some new information as we have been enlightened by the two speakers in the last hour. So today we covered about SDG 6 on developing the blue economy for ocean conservation by John Jones and Datin Paduka Dr. Fatima shared with us about sharing and caring through cooperative for coastal communities. I'm pleased to inform you, I have to share with you that the second batch of the webinar series, which is number 4 to 6, will focus more on preserving water resources for food security and drinking. So I would like to remind everyone to keep the date for the next upcoming webinar series number 4 on Monday, 3rd May. Same time, 3 to 4 p.m. Malaysia time. It's Malaysia time, okay?
Mission
So,
time.
so the webinar series will focus, yes, on water conservation and land-based impact on ocean pollution. So again, till we meet again in webinar series number 4 on 3rd May 2021 We pray that everyone is safe and healthy. So love your environment and prosper your community. So be safe, stay safe. So Rahina Ibrahim signing off. Thank you everyone for joining
Thanks,
today.
Tina.
Thank you.
Everybody,
Bye. Thank you.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.